Let me begin with a sincere apology. I tried to grade what I asked you guys to submit, and I figured it out, but it wasn't easy. So after my major overhaul that was better than the previous one, I see that I needed to do another overhaul. So to make it easier for you to navigate and for me to grade. I mean, it's all about me, but and I got a couple of questions about what to put where. You shouldn't have to ask those questions. That's not something that I want you to stress out about. I want you to have to do the. I want you to do the work, not figure out what you're supposed to do and where you're supposed to put it. So hopefully this will help. I'll talk a little bit about. There was some confusion last time about what was required, and I want you to know that. If you didn't do everything that I asked you to do, it is fine. I'm new to the D2L platform. I think many of you guys are new to the D2L platform. It is baffling to me, and trying to bridge that gap. I'm brand new to this dual modality format, so trying to figure out how to link up those two courses. And I'm teaching a course in digital humanities, so you would think I'm all hella techie, but technology's hard, man. That if you get nothing else from today's class, right? Technology's hard. Big learning curve. Okay, so what I've done is a couple of things. One, based on, I think it was Lonnie's suggestion, can I get a recap about what's due that coming up? And yes, you can. I will start doing this each time, but our agenda, which we're still using this bad boy. We'll have a checklist at the end. Come on, do this for me. For next time, and I'll talk about what was due for this time too. But there will be no consequences for not having gotten what needed to happen done. Yeah. You know those words. Okay, so some of you guys, well, let's start not with rhetorical praises because there's a question there. But for next time, according to the calendar, we're reading graphs, maps, and trees. I didn't put the exact number of pages on there, but read about half. We'll deal with the first half, and then we'll deal with the second half later. You know, you don't need to do any math to do that, but figure it out. Okay, you're supposed to be blogging once every 2 weeks and responding to somebody once every week. Somebody asked me, how am I going to know that you've responded to somebody? Well, I'm going to stumble across that and make a notation when I go through and comment to you guys. So I'm going to be engaging with these as well. So I'll chart those that way. The blog posts that you do, I will also be, you know, looking at your blogs and catching those up that way. But what we've done is, let me try to, okay. I've taken everything I could the hell out of D2L, gone, out. Instead, we're going to be using your blogs, and in order for us to find stuff easily for me to grade, but also for you guys to find each other's stuff, you're going to be logging those entries in your Zotero group library. So little tour of, you guys have already, many of you guys have already been in it. I see you've already put a bunch of stuff in there. In fact, we have like almost 90 things in there. So yes, your blog entries, and I'm sorry, you've got your 20 entries. So let's go to the assignments thing. Okay, so you have this folder, this 20 entries folder, and you guys are already filling it. Fantastic. What I'm asking you guys to do with that is 20 rhetorical, 20 Zotero entries with the relevant rhetorical précis that will be at least 5 digital humanities projects, and I see you guys, a lot of you guys have more than that already. At least 5 scholarly articles, and some of you guys have more than that already. The rest is up to you. It could be like periodicals. It could be blog posts from some other person's blog that's outside of this class, and whatever else. You can also use that. Yes.
Let me unmute. So when you say in the 20 entries folder, do you mean under our last name?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So yeah, so I'll be looking in there. Do they have at least 20 entries? I expect you're going to have a lot more. But anyway, so that's where you're going to collect external source materials. And then you are going to, you've got your rhetorical précises, and those happen every week. And we're a little bit behind, but you guys had some that were due last week and some that are due this week. And since we're still trying to get used to one another, let's just call this a starting point. And if you weren't able to get those before, then go ahead and get them in next week. And if you did get those in before, like they came in 2 weeks ago, we'll get hopefully a chance to talk about those. But those should go on your blog, and put a link to it in the Zotero library. So if you're in group 1, there we go, nice. Stephanie has given us her abstract here. Actually her rhetorical précis is in the abstract section. And then some notes that help us so these are the notes, 2 things. You've got your rhetorical précis, which is that 5-sentence thing, and that goes in the abstract part. And then those of you guys who are here, you'll just present to us. So who has a rhetorical précis to present? Okay, Daniel does, excellent. Okay, so and Lonnie does, and Katie does. Okay, excellent, and Jennifer does, wonderful. So you guys will just present to us. Those of you who are listening to this in the future and you can't be here, you'll write it up. So Stephanie can't be with us, so she has written up in the notes section the stuff that she would say had she been able to be here, so that we have access to that information. Those of you guys who are presenting your rhetorical précis in class, we've heard it, and the people who are looking at the recording have it, so you don't need to write that up. But this is just like mimicking the presentation here. To go back to the rhetorical précis, we're doing week 2 and week 3 and week 4. We're going to be working on the debates from the digital humanities, and then week 5 we're going to be working on that reading graphs, maps, and trees. Remember, that's a free PDF one, and that one is a series of blog posts and other short pieces in response to Morietti's graphs, maps, and trees. So once we've had a chance to start that book, then we'll start looking at critiques of that book. So you guys are reading that in a crowdsourced way. You read a chapter, you present it to us, now we know about it, and we don't need to read that chapter, except that we might want to go to it later and so forth. So next time, if you haven't already done it, next time, if you're in group 1, you should select a chapter from History's Futures of the DH and its Methods, those first 2 sections, Histories and Futures, Digital Humanities and its Methods. And if you haven't already done it, then if you didn't come today ready to talk about, if you're part of 2 and you didn't come ready today to talk about digital humanities and its practices, and DH and its disciplines, its practices and its disciplines, then have that ready for next time. So we'll catch up next time. So how many of you guys have a rhetorical précis not due today, but it was due last time and you've done it, okay, Katie does, or the time before and Lonnie does. Okay, so we'll do those towards the beginning of class. So group 2 next time, and anybody else who hasn't had a chance to present yet, they'll go next time and present their chapter, all on debates from the digital humanities. The first half of graphs, maps, and trees. This is in the calendar. The chapter on from emergence in the digital humanities on aversion, and then I will just every week just give you a little checklist to respond to. Has it been more than a week since you last posted to your blog? Remember, you have to post every other week. Have you responded to a classmate's blog at least once this week? And another suggestion for you to be doing before next week is to catch up on your Zotero group entries. So that means that if, for example, you weren't able to attend that first class meeting and you created a blog post in response to that class meeting and you haven't yet recorded that or created an entry for that in the Zotero group library, then do that. We've got space for the recorded class meetings. I'll keep links to our recordings here. So we don't, because there were some people who were digging for those too. So those will be in our Zotero group library, which I've already lost. So you'll be able to click this recorded class meetings videos in your posts, and the blog entry before class. We have some to look at, and we'll bring some of those in, but those are people who are not here. Those are people who weren't able to attend live. You don't have to do that, because what they're doing is, and this is why it's so hard to figure out this dual modality class, but what they're doing by posting before class is basically simulating what they would be doing had they been able to come to class. So these are the contributions that they might make to the class discussion. And then after class, they post in response to class. So let me get to my agenda here. I'll come back to that. And then DH presentation. Okay, I'm done with the schedule. Everybody has given me their preferences, and I have updated the calendar so that you got, I try to give you your first choice, and if I couldn't, I'd give you a second choice, and so forth. So we don't have anybody presenting this week, but Daniel's presenting next week. What are you going to present to us?
It's the Dubliners, the interactive Dubliners. It's like a digital enhancement of that book.
I read your entry for that. It sounds very cool. And then Jennifer and Greg will present next time, no, the time after that. Jennifer, do you know what you're going to present on yet? You had several in your folder.
Yeah, I'll do electronic Beowulf 4.0.
Okay,
just,
4.0.
Yeah, they
Excellent.
updated it, and just so I have a question about that too. If I were to come to class, I can just kind of like have my laptop and open it and navigate live, right?
Yeah. Oh, our tech guy's gone.
Okay.
What you can do is because I don't know that you can project your screen for us. Okay. So if you you just tell me what to pull up, and I'll do Vanna White and just go places. Okay. But you can kind of talk us through. And
if we can't come to class, we need to record it with the thing that you told us the other day, right? The
yeah, something like screencast. Okay. Just talk us through. What is it about? Okay. Let's see. Where's the presentation stuff? Yeah, what is it about? What does it do that can be done with traditional text, and why should it matter? And then give us a little demo. So
would that be pre-recorded, or would I be doing that through Screencast Live?
If you're here, then you'll just do it live.
Okay.
To class, you can bring her PowerPoint and a USB.
Yes, you can do that too.
Email it to you, share it with you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Will you have a PowerPoint or are you just going to talk us through and show it to us? Because you don't need one.
Yeah, whatever.
You don't need a PowerPoint.
Okay.
Unless you want one. And if it'll be more helpful to you to have some kind of a slideshow for,
Right.
then just send that to me, and then I will put it up here, and then you can walk us through there.
Okay.
But
so
you don't need one.
if I did it the screencast way, would that be something I would have recorded in advance and just play, like, you know? I'm so done with this stuff. I don't know.
No, I'm glad you're asking these questions. So Katie, I think, asked me this too, right? That I'm going to be there, but since I can't actually navigate the Digital Humanities Project from where I'm sitting, can I just do a screencast? Yes, absolutely. And all I would do is just press play, and and then would watch it, and you would be there to answer questions.
Yes.
And for those people who can't be here, then they will create a screencast that we will then be able to watch at our leisure.
Okay.
And all of the above, make sure you create a Zotero group entry for your Digital Humanities project so we can all look at it later. It may be something we incorporate in our final project, but also if you have presentation materials, like if you did a screencast, create a Zotero entry for that.
Okay.
And that will be in our DH projects.
Well, I've already messed up all of my rhetorical précis because I put the everything in the notes instead of the abstract, so I need to go fix it all.
That's okay. No, don't. If it's, well, actually, it's not super hard to edit. Has anybody tried to edit?
I have edited already, just not that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's easy. It's easy.
Okay.
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste. Yeah. Has anybody tried the?
Save it.
I'm sorry. What's that, Katie?
Oh, I just said I'm trying to I guess I put it in the wrong place before on the Zotero thing. So I was trying to add the entry so it's not just on my blog, but it's not letting me save it. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
I had some saving issues too, and then I went and did it a second time, and it let me save it then. So that's happened twice. But
Are you guys working from the web version, or did you download it?
The web version.
Web version, yeah.
Okay. There's a what?
Yeah, so
Why
I
would you say that,
downloaded
Joyce?
it. I had to download it, and then there was a file, like an extension. And so now anytime I'm on the web, it asks me if I want to save it to my Zotero, like automatically.
You just
Like a
click
little
a button and it'll put the full citation into your Zotero and make a Zotero entry for
So
it.
if you download it, it's super easy. Like you just click the extension, it's up at the, like where your URL bar is, it's at the end of that URL bar.
So
That sounds awesome.
So,
okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
so it'll be
It's
just
a
a
little button.
little,
Yeah, it'll be right over there. Mhm.
well, is that not, I don't know how to use it
That's
on
on a
Mac,
I don't know.
but anyway, but yeah, it'll be a plug-in, just to punch a button and then it'll populate the whole thing. Now it'll make a mess in some cases.
Yeah, you have to go back and edit.
But it's there. You don't have to type it all in yourself. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it is easier to move entries around when you've downloaded the software. I have not figured out how to do it on the web. Once it's there, it's there. But don't worry too much if right now the stuff is not where you want it. It's there. I mean, we can see. Nothing's hidden. We can see everything that's posted there. What do we have here now? 87 items. So not bad, huh? For the just getting started. So, Greg, what were you thinking of? Do you know what you're going to present on?
No, ma'am. I had
Okay.
I wanted to, I guess, get clarity on it. So we're to go through, find some type of digital humanities, digital project that's out there, and present something new, not something that's already that you have on the list there, but we're to go and find something and present that out. Is that?
Yes. You're finding one that maybe we've stumbled over before, but not one that we've included on the agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
So, there's a lot of stuff that's happening out there, and it's happening so fast, nobody can keep up. So the idea is that we'll just crowdsource what's out there. And I feel like that one of the best ways, I think probably the best, the only way, since we can't agree on a definition of what digital humanities is just look at digital humanities projects. And the more we see them, the more I think it helps us kind of, I don't know, it breaks our brain or open or something like that, and helps us think in these different ways.
So, and so we upload that onto our blog, and then and it might be easier just to go, make the effort to drive all the way out there and then present it from the class instead of here.
Well, you can do a couple of things. You can, I'll put it here, and then you can tell me, if you go over to such and such, it'll do blah, blah, blah. I can just Vanna White it.
Yes,
or you can, I think, Katie, was it you who was talking about screencasting it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's if you go to Screencastify, it's super easy.
Screencastify.
QuickTime also is easy.
And QuickTime. Okay.
You just go to File, New Screenshot, or Screen something that says, and it just starts recording.
Did you have to download that?
It was already on my Mac. I don't know.
Okay, so.
Yeah, QuickTime.
And
it records your voice. It records your mouse movement. So everywhere you click, they're seeing everything you're seeing while you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have to prepare anything ahead of time. Even if you're doing a screencast, be familiar with it enough so that you don't fumble a lot, so you can show us what it can do without having to look for things too much. But you're just telling us what it is, why it matters, and just giving us a little intro to it. So Katie, why were you thinking of doing a screencast even though you probably will be here live?
Well, since I'll be at home, I don't know. I just figured that I wouldn't have to say okay, hey, push this button.
Yeah. No, over there in that corner, not the right corner, but the your other left. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
on that, the QuickTime, I don't know if you guys use a Mac, but I'm with Joyce. It just comes with my Mac already on there, QuickTime.
Yeah.
And I've used it before.
okay.
But I'm just wondering also, I've used Zoom a lot, and I always just share my screen and can show them anything, if I had made.
Oh my gosh, Lonnie,
But-
that's what this is supposed to do. You should be able to do that.
Well, do you want me to test it? Because I can hit right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try it.
All right, so I'm going to hit share. You cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing. So I guess then maybe it won't, or maybe you would have to quit screen sharing for me to screen share, maybe. Maybe only one of us at a time can.
Our guy's gone. I don't know. I'll ask him.
Okay. Well, and it may not work with this many. I don't know. But with my Zoom meeting, it's normally just 4 people, and I share my screen, and I can show them a website or a PowerPoint or anything. But I don't know if it'll work in this setting.
Okay.
I've used Blackboard for that. It's a different program, but there's moderator privileges. So if they're at all similar, someone's going to have to grant her that access.
Okay.
So I would.
I'll talk to him about that. I think for now, let's do the Vanna White or screencast thing. But don't spend a ton of time on this project. It's an informal one. I want you to find something and show us something. So that's all we're doing. Yeah, Greg? Oh, I thought you had a question.
Sounds good.
Okay, excellent.
Time limit, Dr. Carter, that you.
5 minutes, try to shoot for that, probably closer to 10, but that including questions and so forth. But I just want you guys to demo it for us. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we finish with this, we go claim a project in that folder, put up in the DH projects on Zotero. That's where we're putting this stuff. Or we're only putting it after we present.
Yeah. You want to share this stuff, I guess, is stuff that we are all sharing together, which I want all of us to have access to, but I don't want somebody to grab a project that somebody else had put in there because they intended to present on it. So, hell, what do we do about claiming projects? because you guys have already put a lot in there. If you put the project in there that you want to present on, take it out. or put it all the free or hands off or something on it so that we don't touch it.
Well, I just found it. I didn't put it in there.
Okay.
I found it today in my house before I walked over.
So wait to put it in there, and when you put it in there, make it clear that this is already taken. You're going to present on it, so that nobody else gets that. Okay. All right. I think I can. Let's see.
Yeah.
That's the one. Oh, that's
no,
you.
you added it.
Oh.
Yeah, it'll list by the author. You write who the author is.
I saw creators.
That was
so
on my list. Yeah, the
Okay,
one I
got it.
put up didn't come up that I put it there. You have to open it to see who put it
I
there.
can't.
I got it. I was like, oh, somebody.
I know. It's stressful.
So maybe in the abstract somewhere in all caps, this is for my DH presentation or something. Okay, so rhetorical précis, we'll do some today, and if you had any due previously that you hadn't done because you were confused, and understandably, have those done before next time, so we'll all catch up. And then do some reading, do some blogging, get your Zotero entries caught up. I will remind you each week, get your presentations ready. And also the big thing, if you didn't attend this week's class meeting, watch this recording and post on it, and I'll talk about that in a second. And if you will not be attending next week's class, post notes. So that's our little checklist. That's what you need to do before next time. So thus far, we've gone through the recorded class meetings, the DH projects, the blogs. This blog note is this is just where your others are. So you're responding to each other's in these. You've got these blog addresses here. So you're looking at responding to one another. Okay, rhetorical précis. Somebody who is not here. Did we already do that?
Mine won't, like I was saying, it won't save to the rhetorical précis thing, but since it was a week 2, I put it on my blog, and then I just put the presentation part at the bottom of my blog.
Okay.
Okay. So it's there.
So
it's not there.
Oh, it's not there?
I mean, it's on my blog, but it won't save to that rhetorical précis page. So if you just go to G, it's under my blog, thing, but it doesn't. Okay. I don't know if that will help.
Yeah, well, let's go to it and tell us about it.
Okay. Did it go to the right page? I don't know why I can't.
I think it just went to the latest.
At the top, it'll say digital humanities. And
there it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now let me see if I can pull it up on my side so I can read it. Okay. So I did the chapter, the what's next, the radical unrealized potential of digital humanities, and I saw somebody else did that too.
That's okay. We'll have them talk about it too.
So I'm just gonna.
Why did you choose this one?
Mostly because the title seemed interesting, to be honest. That whole don't judge a book by its cover thing. I don't believe in that at all.
Covers matter. Have a good title, right?
Really? Why else would you open? So, I'm just gonna kind of read what I wrote on the presentation thing, if that's okay. I said it basically just critiques the injustice currently in some of digital humanities, and it's not necessarily purposeful injustice, but because of the way that a lot of the data that is studied through digital humanities is collected, a lot of it is through census data, and since that is very defined checkboxes, for example, if you identify as more than one race, or if you identify with a certain gender that may not be what you were originally represented as your gender, there's not a gray area to a lot of that data. So when you're trying to look at kind of get an idea of more like specific data, it's hard to see that just because that information is so gray rather than like it takes away that like I wrote on there, like the sliding scale of data. So instead of seeing like the lived experience of someone, you're just seeing like what you would put on a census checkbox. It had some really good examples that that Posner had shared specifically about how she had, or how other people had started trying to get that data. There was a University of Chicago, it said there was a professor who encouraged her students to crawl through people's attics and storage rooms and dig out their old papers instead of relying on historical data that had already been collected.
With permission, right? No, no cat burglars, right?
Because that would be just awkward. But she just pointed, like, her whole kind of stance on that was just based on, we assume that everyone, or the data assumes that everyone of the same race or gender or sexual preference have all had the same, like, lived experience, was the phrase she kept using. And so a lot of this was just about kind of taking that prejudice away from, like, a power structure and focusing on lived experience rather than, like, combining everyone who, according to those census checkboxes, had the same experience or had the same circumstances. We can't really draw those conclusions because that's not necessarily the same, life that everyone with the same demographic background would have lived. So,
okay.
Really interesting.
So is this something that the digital humanities in particular is susceptible to, or is it it's a problem that we have with archival research in general? And
I think it was archival research in general, but the article pushed the idea of digital humanities being a kind of forum for starting to break down some of those kind of accidental prejudices. And because of the kind of newness of it and because of the different like technologies that can be used, we have the capabilities more to kind of suss out those differences instead of grouping everything together. So it was really just kind of focusing on the opportunity of digital humanities.
I see.
To kind of change that direction.
Excellent. Okay. So this piece is an example of, this book doesn't come out until March, so we couldn't use it as one of ours, but it's Critical Digital Humanities, where it's, there's an article in an earlier version of Debates in the Digital Humanities, says, well, why is the digital humanities so white? That really takes the digital humanities to task as this is the way critical works in most everything else, that we can't unproblematically use these tools that have been largely built by corporations and that have the same prejudices that humans have as they work their way through the world, and there's no utopian space and all these kinds of things. It's fascinating stuff, and we will have and we have read some of those things. And one example of critical digital humanities is that book on post-colonialism that we're going to be reading later. So excellent. Anything else for this article?
It was really interesting. It was worth the read.
It sounds interesting.
You didn't read that one.
Yeah. You guys have questions? The person who did this chapter as well, they're not here, right? No. Okay. Well, hello to you in the future. And that's not a problem because we're all going to be taking these things at a little bit different angle. There are a lot of chapters to choose from, so it won't always overlap. But Katie said it might, and it did. Who wants to present next? Do you want to, Daniel? Okay. Yeah. You guys can hear him all right, right? Okay. He's not talking right now.
Yeah. I'll read my phrases and
okay.
some of my.
Do you want me to pull it out? Did you? Oh, it's not up yet there yet.
I posted it on D2L, so I don't know if.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going in there.
Okay. Well, I chose the article "Where's Methodology in Digital Humanities?" and that's by Tanya Clement. And basically, she asserts that we need to situate social science methods and methodologies of research within a humanist framework so that we can bridge an understanding between the theories. Clement supports her argument by reviewing information work in the two discourse communities of social sciences and digital humanities, and then by focusing on very specific methodologies. Her purpose, that she states, is to show that examining similar methodological perspectives in information work research in the social sciences, namely authority, creation, hermeneutics, and becoming answerable, informs how we might apply humanist theories to research on information as process in the digital humanities. And she writes in an academic tone for us and for colleagues, so that as well for social scientists who may be concerned about what methods and methodologies are used in digital humanities. And some of the notes that I took that I found were interesting. She talks about the digital humanist is knowledge worker and information worker. And she also touches on that idea of corporation that you guys were just talking about. Digital humanities is blurring with corporate culture and the information workspace because of the corporations creating this technology and how we merge with that and blend together with that. But she also goes into talking about information as process and how methods should be implemented with theoretical perspective, and how digital humanities is situated in the humanist epistemological framework. So some of those terms was, we're also talking about this in the writing research class with Dr. Pausik, so that's why I chose this. Talk about methods and methodology. She says that we need to be able to explicate a link between theories and methods, and I took that from reading this, that methodology is the link between method and theory, where I guess we're coming from theory in the humanities a lot, and from literature background, I'm interested in psychoanalytical theory and all of that, but what are the methods used to analyze a text and methodologies, and how methodologies are subjective, really, oftentimes.
So methodologies that are appropriate for the theoretical framework that you're working with. Okay.
But she calls into question like authority creation, like what is the authority and how to analyze that, and the hermeneutics and becoming answerable, and activism. Such.
Okay. Does she have examples for us?
One of them was she talks about like 3D printers.
Okay.
And the necessity of having to treat the audiovisual materials as static objects in a database.
I think that's interesting in relationship to what Katie's talking about, that we have these data sets, and then what we have these digital methodologies, but we're still working with like a snapshot in time.
And the resistance to the materiality through technology.
Okay, now talk more about that. Why do we resist it? How does that?
Well, and she, in that same sentence, she talks about resisting it and disobedience, technology itself, in order so that we can manipulate it for our purposes instead of being controlled by the technology. And I think she even gives like an example of communist dictatorship, and like 3D printers and all this, and both of which are
communist dictatorship, 3D printers. You know how you put those things together.
Regimes of influence that must be theorized. So not allowing like the technology and the corporations and all that to sort of influence how we present humanities and how we relate to other people, but how we can manipulate that technology for our own uses. So.
Nice. Not letting crawl around in those dirty attics, the dusty attics, and don't let the man dictate what to. There's, I can't remember who made this argument, but it's a really interesting one that I'm not sure I buy, but I think it's fascinating. She said that to be literate, like in our first year comp classes, for example, we need to teach students not just to write, but to program, because the layers of, I've got Google open, and so the Google Corporation and the
Apple Corporation. Everybody right here is dictating the moves that I can make and the choices that I can make. That, I mean, a lot of those have been dictated by history, you know, and using alphabetic text, and it goes from left to right, and the thing that I'm looking at actually looks like an 8.5 by 11 page, and when it prints out, it's going to be that size and all that kind of stuff. But the same kind of thing that we have to interrogate the technology, again, critical of digital humanities, that it's all human made, so it's all infused with everything that humanities do, or that humans do, that's right and good and terrible and improper. Yeah. Anything else about that?
No, I just found it, interesting that's, I guess, is that like a movement now of implementing the social science techniques, methods, and methodology with digital humanities, and because of the sciences involved with the technology?
I mean, the humanities have been drawing from social sciences for a long time. Rec Comp certainly does. I mean, not everybody calls that humanities, but I do. So yeah, I think, I mean, it does make sense. I mean, like we talked about last time, that bridge between the humanities and the sciences is more easily traversed with something like the digital humanities, or it can be more easily traversed. But the other side of things is the sciences don't think much of the social sciences, so they're sort of the stepchild too. So yeah. Any others? Anybody else have a précis to share? All right, Lonnie. Yeah, hit us. What do I pull it up, or is it?
I didn't realize there was a place on Zotero to post it. I put it on my blog.
Well, I just created it 2 days ago, so why didn't you know? And I didn't tell you about it. So somehow you guys found out about this. I don't know. Go ahead, Lonnie. Talk to us.
Okay. Also, I read mine so long ago, and I'm sitting here looking at my little 5-sentence RP, and I'm thinking, where's the big page of notes that I took when I read this? And I think it's on the memory stick that I can't find. So,
do you feel comfortable presenting now, or would you want to put it off? Or you want to get out of the way?
I'd rather just go for it, because I don't know if I'll ever find my sad memory stick. But okay, so mine, the author, his name was Stephen Robertson, and it was in the debates in the digital humanities text, and his chapter was called "The Differences Between Digital Humanities and Digital History." So big thing was that he didn't really like the tent metaphor, and so he gave a metaphor about a house. And then in the intro to one of the texts we read for this week, they gave the metaphor of a flower. And so I'm just wondering, like, how many metaphors do we have for digital humanities? I guess a lot. Anyway, so his big thing was, if it's a tent and everybody's welcome, then he felt like it was kind of off-putting to certain scholars that really couldn't see their field clearly represented, that they maybe were only interested in what pertains specifically to history or to science or to English or whatever, and that some people weren't interested in the digital humanities just because they didn't see a clear line or a clear representation of what belonged to just their area of interest. And so that's why he liked the house metaphor better, because he felt like if digital humanities is a house in each discipline, I'm sorry, should I turn some more lights on in the car?
Hey!
If each discipline had its own room in the house, and then that way you're still kind of within your field or your area, but you can still meet up, like common areas in the house, the living room or the kitchen or whatever. You can still meet up and work with other fields as well.
Who gets the master bedroom?
I don't know. My master bedroom is a storage room, so you can have it. And then let's see. Oh, he's a history guy. I think clearly he was wanting to see a definite a difference, like between like more what did he say, like more literature based or literary studies. Like he wanted to see history, and he gave like some examples of projects that were more clearly history focused and history oriented, kind of to draw attention not just from from scholars, but also for people that want to give money toward these projects, right? To have it funded, and maybe they're not going to give their funding towards something if they can't clearly see how it benefits their area of interest.
Huh. Does the house work for you?
Well, I was liking the house better than the tent, and then I read about the flower, so I don't know. I'm going to have to get back with you on that.
Oh, I love it. Well, the tent and that conversation, for some reason, reminds me of the Women's March, the big rift that happened the second year. So everything, there was the big, all the chaos that went into what eventually became this giant Women's March was conversations about like who should be included. And this kind of goes to what Katie was talking to is as well, good. There are, should trans women be included? Should people whose position on reproductive rights be included? Should who are we representing? Whom are we representing? And the history of women's demonstrations going back, even including like the suffragette movement, where they have the white women in the front, white respectable ladies in the front, and at the end they let the black women march, but the white women were thinking, because we have to make it presentable in a way that will not be off-putting to people, so that they will accept this push for rights. And what happened this year was that there just became a giant rift. Those people representing, Black, queer, disabled, all of these other kinds of intersectional issues had one vision for the march, and then the person who started the original march had her vision for the march, and they could not agree, and they could also not agree who's in charge. So they ended up having two separate sets of activities. The one saying, if we can develop equality in one sense, then we can all rise up. And then the other kind of more radical perspective is that if we can gain equality for the most oppressed among us, then all of us, receive the joy of that. I don't know. So maybe maybe that's a breakdown of the big tent philosophy. I have no idea if putting these people in a house is going to clean up anything. I mean, is it because it's more private?
Well,
I don't know. Invite people in and push people out.
Well, maybe like if you're in your, I pictured his line of thinking, like if you're in your room, and I could be like this broody teenager that never leaves my room, or it'd be if I don't want to engage in with others as much, or if I want to work with others, they're in the same house, they're easy for me to get to and to work with.
Okay.
One of the DH projects that I put in my folder on Zotero, to me would have kind of fit his definition of more clearly history, because it was about the Chinese immigrant railroad workers. And so I thought, okay, maybe this is like what he meant by this project. It's more like a history focus. I mean, yes, it includes other things too, but somebody that was interested in this project as a history person would maybe clearly see their interest or their way to contribute or be a part of this.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Why'd you pick this article, this chapter?
Sorry.
No?
Sorry.
Can't remember?
I muted myself. The article for my for this presentation right now?
Yeah.
Because I was wondering how the disciplines, like how they would work together in something that seems so multidisciplinary. I was just kind of what Stevens' 2 cents were on this, but his 2 cents are it needs to be a little bit more clearly defined as far as like what your area of interest or expertise is in, so that you see what room of the house you want to be the biggest part of, I guess. I don't know.
Sure. No, for sure. I'm not sure that we'll, I guess part of your reading for today, the rhetoric and the digital humanities, I can speak best about the thing that I wrote. Charles Bazerman talks about how writing studies should use what he calls disciplined interdisciplinarity, meaning that we have certain questions that we want to answer and explore in writing studies, rhetoric and composition. And we can then take the tools that other disciplines use and have to answer those questions. And that's kind of what I was saying from the beginning, is that I want digital humanities to serve me and my discipline and my questions and my concerns. So in applying the argument that I was making in the digital humanities is that we can, instead of arguing about, which is sort of what we've done before, as you know, digital humanities is the big deal, yay, but computers and writing has always done it, and what about us, and what about us, and what about us, and my argument was, settle down, okay, it's all right, we don't have to have that, peeing contest or whatever, but that we can take his disciplined interdisciplinarity approach, that we have certain things that we're concerned about from our discipline, things that we want to know, and what tools can we take from the digital humanities to help us answer those questions. And one of those tools is this data visualization. I'll show you in a second. It's a literature project, but it's also rhetoric that's tracing the circulation of letters in the Republic of Letters across from Voltaire to, where did they go and how many letters and so forth. And so we need another kind of tool to do that. But yeah, so get out of my house. Any other rhetorical crises? Yeah.
No, I've actually just got it to go on Voltaire.
Oh, good. Okay. You put in where?
I put it under my name.
Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. No.
Wrong place.
There it is. Yak and yak.
So I put the link in there as well if you wanted to read it. But I had to put in a note with it. I chose it because the title was talking about the origins of the words hack and yak and how that tied back to the humanities. And so what she's basically saying is that this is silliness and we don't need silliness to represent what we're doing. And so I had to go back and look at what hack, it was more hack, less yak. I didn't know what that was. So I had to go back and actually look that up first.
So what was that?
Could continue reading. So it was basically kind of the term that says, let's do more instead of just talk about it. So basically I kind of tied it into digital humanities because she was talking about publications, presentations, social media conversations and things like that. And I tied that into the digital end of things. But basically she was saying that it's not that we don't need to do more.
All in my grill.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to show you, this is where the assignments are, the final assignments, final project. Okay, back to one of the many things here. Okay, so that you're going to curate a multimedia exhibition, and the topic is either, an author. It could be, Brian was talking about maybe a genre, science fiction, digital humanities. It could be a kind of, and maybe you want to look at just visualization tools or something like that. And you'll have, so here, it's going to showcase projects on the same topic, Victorian literature or the same type of augmented reality. Your job is to create a multimedia resource that is going to draw these disparate pieces into a singular focus. So you have a collective introduction around 1,200 words where you're going to theorize and contextualize your project within this larger conversation. And one of the things that came up was Ryan said that he found a project that he thought was really interesting but it doesn't exist yet. This is a description of a project that will be built. And so what is he to do with that? Well, he can't use that as a project to demonstrate for his presentation because it doesn't exist. We can't show that. But he can, in this collective introduction, talk about it. So he's, drawing from our course readings and so forth, defining the digital humanities, but then really talking, if you want to, in ways that we've been talking about what the digital humanities can do for us. And so, for example, somebody who's interested in studying science fiction or interested in teaching science fiction, what can this do? Well, he has a project that he describes that is trying to do these kinds of things, but it has these kinds of limitations. But there is a project in the works that doesn't yet exist that pushes past these limitations in these ways, and they seem to be suggesting that Y and Z and that kind of thing. So you can talk about, you should be talking about the kind of, they call it an environmental scan, basically what is out there, and draw from the scholarship to theorize that and so forth. And then you're going to have a curated collection of DH projects that will be on whatever that theme is, science fiction, Victorian literature, augmented reality, graffiti, visualization tools, whatever it is. And then it's going to be kind of like a catalog of these objects that you're featuring. So you have like a little blurb, and then an annotated list of other resources that will serve to help us read all of this other stuff, and then little bios. And someone asked, so what if I already presented on one of those digital humanities projects? Can I include it in my final project? Yes, anything can be included in your final project, anything that you've done. Be thinking about, as you're looking at things, what is it that you want, what is it that you're most interested in digital humanities, and build a resource around that. You guys can't talk to me, so I won't ask you guys. But I did just talk to Brian, and he was talking about what he might be doing. I'm thinking he might be doing something with Dubliners or Joyce or Ireland more generally, Irish studies more generally. You could do a project that's based on interactive maps. You could do a project that's based on this looking at the same space but over time. You could do a teaching project. You could do anyway, you have a lot of options. So be thinking about that, and that's it.
All right, so this is called, Mapping the Republic of Letters. It is essentially, it's a literature project or a history project, but it's definitely also retconfy. The Republic of Letters is this cluster of this long-distance intellectual community in the 17th and 18th century in Europe and in the Americas. It fostered communication amongst intellectuals in the Age of Enlightenment, and it emerged around the 17th century as it was a self-proclaimed community of scholars and literary figures that stretched across national boundaries, but respected differences in language and cultures. Apparently, this is what it's so they, in order to sustain, rather than sitting in coffee houses in Paris somewhere, they circulated these handwritten letters, and that was necessary for its function. It existed only as a space through which letters circulated, because it enabled these intellectuals to correspond with each other across great distances. Of course, there's no telephone, there's no internet, and so forth. And they also exchanged pamphlets and published papers, and they thought it was their duty to bring others into the Republic. This expansion of this correspondence, and it moves outwards and outwards. So people have been studying these letters for a long time, and they're trying to understand, to trace these networks of friendships. And there's some powerhouses in these, and also shared knowledge, like who was writing to whom. Where did that idea come from? Did the English influence the French, or did the French influence the English? What about the Dutch? Have you heard about the latest Voltaire and his endorsement of Newton, for example? These little nuggets of gossip that show up. And so to reconstruct these networks, the scholars who historically have focused on the content of those letters, what are they saying? But the digital humanities lets them do is that if they took a step back and focused on the correspondence network as a whole by using software to help, like where are those letters going? So I'll show you that in just a second. But well, let me show you a quick little look-see. Let's click on Voltaire and see what's going on. Something's too long. So that's a lot of damn letters going back and forth. So what might we learn? That's what they're doing. They want to ask not just like the content of the letters, but the volume of letters and who's saying what to whom, and to whom does that go, and in what place and time does that happen. They sort of ignore the content of the letters, but what the problem is trying to figure out how to make that messy and often incomplete historical record mesh with the structures of media programs. So they have some of the problems that Katie was mentioning. There's the limits of the data pool. But he's been looking for a way for several years. They've got about 6,400 authors and about 55,000 letters set up. They want to know, did the reality match the rhetoric of the Republic of Letters? Really, how global and cosmopolitan were these networks? Because we've always assumed that they were, but were they really? How far did they go? Was there one network? Meaning, like, did everybody cross-pollinate across one network, or were there like sub-networks going on where people weren't sharing letters? Or were there a lot of little networks that weren't connected? He's also looking at, of course, he said, the chance to kind of step back from looking at an archive letter by letter, because you sit there in the archive, you've got a box, you're just looking at them one letter at a time. What if you could get a bird's eye view of those letters, and you didn't have to hold in your head, who was talking to whom, and also how often did they send letters to one another. So this is like a way of examining the whole that you can't do by this close reading alone. So they work with the Packard Humanities Institute, the Electronic Enlightenment Project. There's the Stanford team that created this database. They log the metadata for each letter, including the sender, the recipient, the location. Those are the main things that they're charting. And then they used a tool that I don't know what it is, but it allows users to select which authors to display, and that's what this is right here, along with options to render the full correspondence or only letters that were sent or received. And then this map let us see new things and some surprising things. And he said that most of the correspondence networks were far more national than you would gather from reading these letters, rather than international. Voltaire's network explodes like a firework over France. I'm just looking at that right now. With tales to England, Russia, and the Swiss. John Locke covers England and Scotland with a little foray into Dublin. This is a thing that digital humanities can do. Also, it takes a little while for this stuff to load. But we can also look at, there's some more. The range that they went to. Here's a breakdown of it by nationality. German, Italian, Dutch, Russia. I couldn't see the colors, but a lot of Germans. Voltaire's French correspondence are charted as well. With correspondence by Montmilieu. Here's just Ben Franklin and Voltaire having conversations. And you can pick other authors as well. Here's some more case studies. We've got some heavy hitters. And we've got Galileo. Number of letters sent by Galileo per year. I can't see what those 1610. He wrote a hell of a lot of letters. Calendar of letters sent to destination city, 1610 to 1612. This data is being sorted so many different ways. Ways that you can't do with just the page, and it's allowing them to see things that, this was like big data. This is qualitative in ways that we don't often expect or desire from the humanities. But it's cool. It's cool nonetheless. So we are going to keep asking, what are the digital humanities? We are going to keep asking that, and everybody's going to keep having their own answers, and it's going to go on, and it's never going to be settled. You know, basically, like a Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart said of porn in 1964, we don't only see it. That's all I think it really matters. I don't even care about trying to suss out, is that really digital humanities or not? So everything we read, they're all going to have their own opinions and good reasons for their definitions of the digital humanities. But as I've said several times, I'm really not that concerned with settling that question, but just really in figuring out, like, practically, what can the digital humanities do for me, for us, you know, namely teaching us new ways to understand, imagine, and visualize and communicate humanities content. What can it do that other things that we already have can't do? What's the stuff that the digital humanities do that nothing else can? What are the new things that we can do that nothing else can? But if we want to fiddle some more with definitions, this thing's fun. This is the definition generator. It came about, quotes were pulled from participants from the Day of Digital Humanities between 2009 and 2014, and that still happens a day every year. As of January 2015, the database contains 815 rows and randomly selects a quote each time the page is loaded. If I do something cool with the data, I'm providing data for download. This is typical, right? We've seen several things. The data that they compiled is always available for other things. This guy says digital humanities is a field of study that focuses on the digitization and analysis of materials related to the humanities. It allows for modern tools to effectively help in the analysis and research of humanities disciplines. Does that definition serve the mapping of the Republic of Letters project? Yeah, I mean, it is that they have to digitize the letters, they have to analyze the letters, and using modern tools. So I think it covers it. Let's refresh and see what else we got. Here we go. In a narrow sense, it's a discipline in its own right. I don't agree. It's a meta-discipline to the humanities. Okay, I agree with that. Digital humanities in a wider sense regards the digital transformation of the disciplines within the humanities, and thus takes place within these disciplines as well. I think that goes along with what Joyce was saying as well, and what the house metaphor thing that Lonnie was talking about. Here's another one. Let's see. A community of practice, that's aligns with our first year comp program, which foregrounds the reflexive and theoretically informed application of digital techniques to humanities subject matter. Sounds good to me. I like to define the digital humanities as a set of new activities for humanists instead of a field of study. I like that too, because digital humanities involves something more than a methodology or an interest in the topic. Implies a complete different attitude towards humanities, the understanding, use, and creation of new tools, and an alternative way to communicate findings. This is something that involves you completely. It's not just technology people and not just traditional humanistic scholars. It should include anyone interested in pedagogy scholarship with a humanistic ethic. They might work under the hood behind the technological screen out front on the stage, making it possible to collect of all ages and agents involved in determining the human condition in the 21st century, and all of these historic projects as well. Yeah.
So to go back to the letter thing for a second, one of the books that it kind of confused me. Instead of if I had say two letters, I had a Voltaire letter and I had a response letter to Voltaire. I could write books and articles and really obsess with the content of these letters. So the Digital Humanities Project, because it goes so far out and it maps the way the letters travel, right? It reveals the routes they took and patterns there. So it kind of forces you to ask questions you wouldn't be able to from just having however many letters you could open.
Yes. Exactly. And there are tons of other things that one can do with those letters to make them digital humanities projects.
You code certain words in the letters to show like the repetition of these words signals like focus on class or focus on issue.
Absolutely. That would be the corpora, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got 55,000 letters, and we can just search for
the word junk. I don't know why we're doing that. It's just see. We can definitely do that. And we can, so what we've got here, what he's doing is this data visualization and analysis thing. But if we are to do a deep dive for a cluster of words and how those go across a series of letters, then we've got ourselves a corpus. Tons of different things that we can do with these things, and the letters project uses data not in the census sense, but if we go back to the mapping Islamophobia, that sort of does exactly what both of you guys are talking about. It takes some keywords and it's argues, okay, this is an example of a hate crime, and it involves this gender and this location and this date and so forth. And so they map the data that way. So it's both. It's the content and it's also the placement. But it is not the interaction, which is what they're charting. Okay, so let's try one more to Dick yourself. We love him. Digital humanities is not just technology people and not just traditional humanities scholars. Okay, we already did that. Hey, okay, one more. Give me one more. Okay, he's a software studies guy. Using digital tools to pursue traditional concerns of the humanities while simultaneously reflecting on responding to ways that digital tools, media, culture are transforming those concerns. That's a question that's something that I think we've seen through all of the articles that you guys talked about. And this is, I think, especially Daniel's, that the tools that we're using are also shaping the things that we're seeing. And some of that is not intentional. And it's always going to do that. And it always has done that. It doesn't have anything to do with it being digital or not. That's just the way it works. Okay, here is the Digital Humanities Manifesto. This is much more, the definition generated by a committee, it's a manifesto. So it is definitely much, Todd Presner is a critical digital humanities guy. And this was published, the Digital Humanities 2.0 was published in 2009, which is a million years ago. And you can tell that it's a million years ago because check this map out. Classmates.com, reunion.com, the icy north is Yahoo, Windows Live. AOL has its own little island. MySpace, look at that bad boy. We've got the Bay of Banks. We've got the Sea of Memes, Kirby, and anthropomorphic dragons. There's a Yahoo Games things, the culture. Anyway, it's fun. So what is a manifesto? Derived from raising the hand. A manifesto is a call to action, a decisive intervention at a critical moment. It is a genre characterized by pithy statements, and you'll see several of those, and suggestive formulations which are simultaneously playful and deadly serious. The purpose of the Digital Humanities Manifesto is to arouse debate. I mean, it does not mince words about what the humanities can and should be doing in the 21st century, particularly concerning the digital culture wars, which are by and large being fought and won by corporate interests. Again, very well critical of digital humanities. It's also a call to assert the relevance and necessity of the humanities, and this is what we spoke about last time. Why do the humanities matter? At a time in doubt of downsizing and austerity measures, persistent requiems of their death. I mean, it's always the end of the humanities. The humanities, I believe, are more necessary than ever as our cultural landscape as a species migrates to digital formats. This is a watershed moment in the history of human civilization, in which our relation to knowledge and information is changing in unpredictable ways. And that's something that C.P. Snow said in the 50s, and it's way more true now. And he was saying that also in the industrial age, but it's, of course, way more true now. Digital humanities studies in the cultural and social impact of new technologies as well as takes an active role in design, implementation, interrogation, and diversion of these technologies. Okay, so here is
what he says is the digital humanities. He says it's not a unified field, but an array of convergent practices that explore a universe in which, and I don't know if they all live in a tent or not, Lonnie, but this is a universe in which print is no longer the exclusive or the normative medium in which knowledge is produced and or disseminated, but instead finds itself absorbed in a new multimedia configurations. And you notice here, like, this is just what's happening to text. This is just what's happening. It's not what we're doing. It's just the way it's happening. And this is, I think, a lot of what Jones is talking about in his book, Emergence of Digital Humanities. And then 2, digital tools, techniques, and media have altered the production and dissemination of knowledge in the arts, human, and social sciences. The digital humanities seek to play an inaugural role with respect, this point is like, 10 years ago. So an inaugural role with respect to the world in which universalities, no longer the sole producers, stewards, and disseminators of knowledge or culture, are called upon to shape natively digital models of scholarly discourse for the newly emerging public spheres of the present era, the blogosphere, digital libraries, to model excellence and innovation to those domains and to facilitate the formation of network of knowledge production, exchange, and dissemination that are at once global and local. Okay, rather than unpacking this, I'm just going to show this to you. I'm just going to open as many windows as I possible, I guess. It's bananas. It's 7 pages long. It looks crazy. It's fun though. Just to look at this, the manifesto on manifestos. Definition: a literal hand wheel. The manifesto reaches out. It's got a hand here. It's manos. It's both beckoning and fending off. It's also like beckoning, like come in and we're all going to do the digital humanities together, and back off, like like Lonnie's piece, changing. Let's not have a tent where everybody can come, but let's have a house where we can close the door. Oh, what the hell does that mean? Little does it matter if the chosen medium is the voice, the body, and 3D printing, the materiality of the digital humanities, the kind of physicality of the digital humanities, or if it's pixelated or scroll, things are hidden, if not since the beginning of the world, then at least by the generation of our immediate forebears. They're all being exposed to today's harsh light. Boy, digital humanities can do some amazing things, apparently. Things that waver between the obvious and the scandalous, the heroic and the silly, the public and the private. What is urgent is to draw a line, the line between sinners and saints, while blurring other lines between critics and makers, coders, and that's cogitators. That's something that was in Joyce's piece, the yak versus hack, So, and also this is the debate between creative writers and literary scholars. Are you the ones who make it? Are you the ones who critique it? You should be both. But anyway, so pushing those lines, the coders, those are the hack versus the cogitators. We talk about stuff. The scholars and the entertainers. If a bit of fun is had along the way, so much the better. Time is short. The genre is in a hurry. So if you're looking for linearity and logic, or for academic treatise, the genre here is all mix, match, mash, manifest. And if you're wondering who's reaching out there, the answer is plural. The Humanities Manifesto was preceded by 1.0 and blah, blah, blah. Will there be a 3.0 release here? Instruction manual, don't whine, comment in the video. So everything that's put out there that is a part of the digital humanities is supposed to be the thing that is continuously commented upon and grows and explores and being remade. Notice that the debates in the digital humanities book itself is a digital humanities project. Did you guys notice that? You can interact with the pages. People have 97 sentences have been marked as interesting. 1 sentence has been marked or ended. This has 2 comments. I can't see what they are, but anyway, you can interact with this bad boy. I think I marked it as interesting. Never mind, don't mark. I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, everything's a digital humanities project. So meta. Where's my manifesto? Okay, so we'll talk about this some more. You can look at it. They talk about it's open source, open resources, anti-corporation. We've got to stand for fair use, and push against the big bad corporations. Digital humanities co-creation, because the complexity of the big humanities project, teamwork, specialized roles within teams, and production standards that imply specialization become defining features of the digital turn in the human sciences. Large-scale distributed models of scholarship, and we'll talk some about the different ways that scholarship looks come about, that they're necessary. And so there's a lot of room. There's just on a zero-sum game. Process is the new God, not product is scratched out. Let's see, throwing down the gauntlet. Take Google, like it or not, it's originated at Stanford, but its home turf is the corporate world, yet its aspiration to become a modern-day Library of Alexandria or the Oracle of Delphi is no longer wildly impossible. To organize the world's information, making it universally accessible and useful, reads the Google mission statement. The Google homepage has become the portal to the world's digital information. Google Earth has become the normative map of Monday, now in the hands of the real community. Our response, not only to seek to understand and interrogate the cultural and social impact of new technologies, but to be engaged in driving the creation of new technologies, methodologies. I mean, it's going to happen anyway, so we need to be, as humans, we need to be involved with mapping and driving and shaping the future of these things, coming up with new things. So we have to be in the front of that. It's about expanding the compass and quality of knowledge in the human sciences, expanding the reach and impact of knowledge in the humanities disciplines, direct engagement in design and development processes that give rise to richer, multi-directional models, genres, iterations of scholarly communication and practice. The traditionalists passively accept the tools handed down from the technological Olympus. We shouldn't do that. They leave limitations on the decline of the West. Before we got to stave off the end of Western civilization all the time because nobody reads anymore. When they read all the damn time, right? I mean, they read way more than I was reading in the 80s. They read everything. They do research all the time. Anyway, they keep on doing what we've always done unto extinction. They celebrate the extinction or uselessness from the seat at the top, a well-padded tenor chair out of 401k, Stanley Fish, poor guy, turn the clock back. And so on and so on. I was like, oh, here we go, making theory, making practice, making things, and making. We definitely do a lot of that. Oh, they have these ideas of, instead of having like a Department of English, we have a Department of Print Culture Studies. We have an Institute of Vocal Studies. We have a Center for Comparative Literature and Media, that's the School of Erasure Studies, a discipline of cultural mapping, laboratory of cultural artifacts. And these are interdisciplinary entirely. So that is what the digital humanities are, and that is what the digital humanities aren't. And I think we're less concerned with those definitions than we are with seeing these projects in motion at work. So let's look at the emergence of the digital humanities. Brian, you like the video game use, where he's using video games?
Yeah.
What is he doing with them?
Is this the
Yeah, the emergency.
the Gibson book?
Yeah, the Jones.
Okay.
Well, yeah, also Gibson influence.
Well, that's why it's good. It's that I like. The only thing that made me mad is about I don't mean to gloss over the uneven distribution, right, of corporate. Talked about corporations in your article a little bit, but to bring in video games so much so as to take this MOOC, I think they called it. That terminology was most likely directly ripped off from MMORPG. So like the root.
What is it? Remind us what that is.
Massively multiplayer online role-playing game.
Like
like World of Warcraft. So then to ignore the corporate side or gloss over this big power dynamic, to me is just like saying, I'm going to invoke, Marxism, but I'm not going to talk about distribution of labor. And like predatory publisher practices and, call it human beings whales because you can make more money out of this person versus all these other people. The introduction, so I don't know. But he's walking the line. I'm not sure he can make it. And he's going to talk about Gibson and poverty in Gibson is just like it's worked here the whole time. That I don't know how from the introduction he's going to walk?
So those are very important questions to raise, and I think that that goes to Katie's article that we regularly don't do that kind of thinking that we need to be doing. But what is he doing with video games to help us understand what the digital humanities are?
You treating them as a text.
Okay.
It's first and foremost is been a neglected. That's why the Popular American Culture Society conferences are great, because they have panels on this stuff. They've been treating it academically as a text for a while, but you're not a reader passively taking in someone else's story. You're engaging in the text in a way that can shape the narrative. So that video games are uniquely equipped to tell a story in a way that you can't in the other.
So we spoke last time online about the digital humanities and the nature of reality, especially through Gibson. Mm-hmm. So given that we're talking about where reality is or isn't, then how do video games help us understand, navigate, deal with that sort of, because all of it's that boundary between real and not, as you guys pointed out in a lot of your blog posts when you're looking at how to rob a bank, that line is like, it's impossible to draw. So what do video games help us get at, maybe metaphorically, that with respect to the nature of reality?
It's more like it's the early internet, right? Cyberspace is a place you literally project your consciousness. In these online examples, there's avatars, there's different personas you can try on. And about the Second Life was the big one years ago. People meet each other, people get married, right? People form little groups and they never physically share space together. And write their own little stories along the way, have their own little interactions. So I don't know that we're at a point where we're blurring that line ourselves, but we can kind of see where there's a uploading of yourself and carrying out, at least in your free time, a different life.
One of the things that I get out of the manifesto and that I get out of some of these definitions is that the digital happens to us rather than us. I guess we push against it too, but the digital, it happens to us in the same way culture and society happens to us, that we can't not engage with it. So he calls this the emergence of the digital humanities. And I pulled the definition just to sort of look at that together. You know what this means, but the process of coming into view or becoming exposed after being concealed, the process of coming into being or becoming important or prominent. So why is he calling this the emergence of the digital humanities? Why is that significant?
Well, I think it even said in one of the introductions we were reading, like the oldest journal about this is 50 years old. I'm sorry, I guess it was probably in the intro of Emergence, but it just said that's the oldest information we have about that. So it is just still such a new concept that we're still kind of in those introductory phases and still trying to like you said, not that the definition is necessarily the important part, but still seeing the capabilities and functionality of digital humanities.
We talk some about what is the starting point of the digital humanities, but there's an always there-ness to the digital humanities. I feel that he's talking about in terms of the emergence. It's coming into view. It's becoming exposed. What's there that has been concealed is now becoming unveiled. Things that digital humanities tools that we have are making visible some of the elements of that blurred line between the real and the virtual that we haven't been able to see before. Or they're making digital where digital wasn't before, like we're looking at letters from the age of the Enlightenment.
and tracing those.
So if I can jump in.
Please.
So you had just said something that caught my attention, and then it really connects to me with this definition. You had just said digital happens to us the same way that culture and society happens to us. And I'm thinking, one of my daughters is about to have a baby, and so that baby is going to be emerged into this world, and it's going to happen to this baby, whether he wants it to or not. And so this digital age that we're living in, it's happening all around us, and you're either forced to go with it or you're forced to kind of get faded out. And so this emergence of digital humanities is circulating constantly, and you have to learn to navigate. Just like if you were to move to a different town, you have to learn to navigate and circumnavigate that culture and that new school or that new community. And so that was just what was going through my mind as you were talking about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. If we were to tag all the technology in this room, what do we have? We have the screens in front of me. Who has screens in front of them? You've got your phone over there. You have your laptop over there. What do you guys have? You have your phones by you?
I have a phone and 2 laptops.
Phone and 2 laptops. Anybody have other electronics? Or we don't have a clock in here, but we do have a light switch. We've got our watches. We've got a camera. We've got a pencil sharpener. That's also technology. I don't know why the hell we have pencil sharpener, but we do. I'm guessing, I don't know if you guys have, smart refrigerators. We got a fridge a year ago, and we can apparently order one that has an app that can tell us if we're out of milk for another $1,000. So, but I mean, so, you guys are here. Are you here? Are they here? I mean, we kicked them out a couple of times. Sorry about that. And how is their here-ness and how is our here-ness mediated by technology?
Well, and that's the connection I like with the video games. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I kept thinking about how video games, there are like forums or chat rooms or places that are blog posts, where they share like hacks or codes or cheats, or I don't know much about video games, so I don't know if I'm using the right words, but so there's like this written communication where other gamers can go and look up these things. And now there are YouTube videos where kids will watch other kids play video games so that they can learn things that they could do. I actually was watching the Gabriel Iglesias Netflix special, and he was talking about his son was like, he was like, son, why are you watching some kid play a video game? He said, because he's a professional. And he was like, but you could play the video game. He's like, well, then why do you watch NFL? Why don't you just go play the football game? And so and then if you've got like the headset thing that some people have, and so it's like virtual, and so you're with that person playing that game, but you're not with that person. And then I was trying to connect all that with the intro and the book that looks like it has plumbing on the front of it. And they talked about that there's, still this big part of the world that's not in on this, that their technology is behind, or that they don't have technology at all. And so how do we kind of, we've got the video game kind of metaphor on one hand, and then the people that are kind of left out of it all together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that goes to some of the critique that Brian was mentioning. This stuff is as problematic as it is interesting. And to me, that's critical digital communities reminds us we have to always keep those problems foregrounded, that there is no utopian space because human beings are involved. We can't not oppress one another for 5 minutes.
Little debates in fact with print media and publishing. They don't have the power they used to, but before digital books. I remember how expensive books used to be? Like the cover price they still put on them. We don't pay that anymore, but that was the $24.95, right? Who pays that now? They had a lot more power than they did, but there's like a democratization with self-publishing, but then one person leads the way with it, and then the other competing ones drop off, so then they can do what they want with the pricing.
Yeah.
So then it's the same thing all over again, and then the new thing has to come.
At the same time, that reminds me of one of the things, and I think we're almost out of time, but one of the things that I was thinking about, I was reading this in English, I can't even Amazon's move to create shops, like physical shops that you walk into and then buy at Amazon. So, I don't know where the real and where is the reality. Reality is this. Our reality right now exists specifically because the technology is involved. And the technology includes the chairs and the weight cases. And the technology also includes all of the history that led to that you guys are sitting in chairs facing me and this board is facing outward, all of the histories that allowed your specific bodies to be in this specific room at this specific time. All of the histories of oppression that have put somebody out of this room and enabled others to come in. And allowed some bodies that weren't in the floor to come in and all of that. I think it's important to us, and this is, I think, something that Bethany Lowe says as well, and yours as well, I think, that when we think about digital humanities, we need not just think about pixelated stuff, but we need to think as well about the humans making a wheel or a hammer or a rock that we treat as a tool. That's all. It all has its own histories. It all has its own problems and specific trajectories.
Peter, you got to mute that, brother. We can't hear, man.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. It looks like we're out of time. Here are my glasses. Really quickly, thank you guys for your patience. Next time, we'll go through some more examples. Next time, we have some more rhetorical crises coming up. This is the checklist, a little reminder. Grouse maps and trees. Are you, you guys have read the intro to that. What are you guys thinking of that one?
Intrigued, but also very confused.
Okay, that sounds about right. And then we'll continue with emerging digital humanities. We're going to keep reading that piecemeal. And then, how many of you guys have blogged already? All right. Yes, everybody, guys. Excellent. Excellent. I've seen several blogs. How many of you guys have commented on other people's blogs? All right. How many of you guys are having trouble commenting on other people's blogs? Okay. Okay. One of the things that as your friend, remember, is I can't get my post to appear on WordPress or something like that, tutorial or something. Well, there's always an answer out there. And then those of you guys who are can't attend this, one thing I want to really stress is those of you guys who aren't here, who I hope are listening, we should drop somewhere next time a little Easter egg somewhere in the class meetings so that they have to watch to that particular point to see. But it's important for this particular recording to be a part of what they're responding to, because this is where you guys talk. It might be, because the agenda is so detailed, it might be a draw to work from that. But that is only a tool to help with what we're doing here. And we miss what Daniel and Greg and Katie and Lonnie and everybody said during the class. So yeah. So we said some brilliant stuff here. What's going on? Oh, I love it. I love it. That's the Easter egg. You guys who are watching this later, reference the Easter egg you just saw. Okay, so if you have questions, you know how to reach me. If you're having trouble navigating the class, let me know, because if you have questions, other people might as well. But as a rule of thumb, everything happens on your blog and in the Zotero group library. And I will still post announcements in D2L as those come up. And I still have your email addresses, so I'll try to reach you that way if I need to. But otherwise, I'll just see you guys next time. And I'm also going around, and I think I told you, I responding to your blog. So we'll keep having conversations that way. And hopefully no bots will come in and start talking to your blog. I know, I'm sorry. Thank you, guys.